I, 29 female, have a civil relationship with my ex, 29 male, despite him cheating on me with my sister, 32 female. My sister is now demanding I have a relationship with her too. I, 29 female, I'm the youngest of 4. I have a brother, 35 male, and twin siblings, 32 male and 32 female. This is about my sister. Buckle up, this is a long one. From the moment I could remember, my sister has always hated me. Not the typical hate between siblings, but true hate. Everything I did, she had to outdo. Every boy I liked, she had to have first. She has gone out of her way to bully me more times than I can remember. The only people who stepped in were my brothers. My father was absent due to his work, and my mother clearly had a favorite, and that wasn't me. I learned early on that I needed to protect myself, and if it wasn't for my brother and best friend, 29 male, I'm pretty sure my self-esteem would have plummeted. The stories I have relating to my sisters and mother's abuse could be written into a novel, and there's far too many. Anyway, fast forward to my college days when I kept low contact with my mother and no contact with my sister. I met a guy. We dated for 2 years. We fell in love, the usual stuff. Then on the day of my graduation party, I caught him and my sister doing the nasty in the guest house. Well, that partly quickly turned into a disaster. Turns out their affair had been going on for 4 months and she claimed to be in love with him and was carrying his child. Mother begged me, literally this woman begged me, to let my boyfriend go, to make that sacrifice for my only sister. Her literal words, by the way. By the time that party was over, my ex barely escaped without getting beaten to death by my brothers, uncles, and my one crazy aunt. Love that woman. I did even in fact break up with him on the spot, but not for my sister or mother, but because he betrayed me. I knew I couldn't trust him, and thanks to the wonderful support system I have, I knew I deserved better. After that disaster, I moved to the other side of the country to begin my new job. Now, I'm highly in demand in my field due to my degrees and specialties, which has allowed me to rise up in the ranks quite quickly and earn far more than I could spend as I live in a rather modest way, with the only thing I splurge on being trips and food. In those 7 years living away from most of my family, I haven't spoken to my mother or sister. I almost cut my dad off too for being too impartial, but he ended up divorcing my mother and realized how many times he failed to stand up for me during my childhood, all thanks to my brothers, by the way. He begged to reconnect a few months after my graduation party, and we've had a strong relationship since, just as I always have with my brothers. The whole family basically abandoned my mother and sister. It only kept contact for the sake of the child, a child they've attempted to use as leverage in many cases, but that's a story for another time. My ex had a little sister, one which I adored and dearly missed with the time away. About a year when I left our hometown, she contacted me via Instagram. She was attending college in my state and expressed how much she missed me, and after a few messages along with a coffee date, we reconnected. She kept me updated on the saga that was my sister and her brother's relationship, not that I asked her to. I quickly found out her brother dumped my sister after the child was born. Apparently, he wanted to wait until his child was born to not cause my sister stress, which would cause pregnancy issues. They have been maintaining a strict co-parenting relationship ever since, which my sister hated. She's even attempted to keep his child away from him, but my ex's family is disgustingly wealthy, so the lawyer stepped in, and strict protocols were put in place to guarantee both parents did their part. I met my sister's child through my ex's sister. I've gone over to her house after work with the intentions of going out to dinner, but she had texted me to cancel the plans. But my phone died, and when I arrived at her apartment, I was surprised with not only with my ex, but the love child too. And guys, the moment I met her, I simply fell in love. I had seen pictures through my family, but they were nothing compared to the real thing. My older brother has 2 kids, which I spoil at any given chance. May it be gifts, trips, or even just stocking up on their favorite beauty supplies. If they wanted it, I got it. I got the money and it never hurt my bank account. I've even organized various trips for the entire family with only my niece missing, and my sister would refuse to let her come with us without her. After seeing how frustrated my family was with my mother and sister for using my niece as a bargaining chip, I put away my pride and contacted my ex. I asked if it was okay if his daughter would join us on said trips. Immediately, he was delighted, because his daughter had expressed feelings of being left out from our side of the family, something we've never wanted. Ever since that agreement, my ex and I would plan out when the little cousins would get together for their trips. Then over the years, our relationship had turned civil. The civil agreement I had with my ex had been kept a secret from my sister. My brothers, along with my father and extended family, agreed it was for the best, as the hatred my sister held for us was hindering her child's happiness. But she recently found out after snooping through a family's Instagram page and seeing her daughter with us on a trip to Disneyland. She confronted us at my brother's house when he was hosting a barbecue. She demanded the same level of respect and forgiveness I gave to my ex, and when I refused, she called me a hypocrite and a-hole. Truth be told, I have forgiven my ex, and my sister too, for everything they've done to me. However, I simply don't want my sister in my life, and my family agrees. They've all had their fair share of drama with her and my mother. They've burned down far too many bridges, and if it wasn't for my niece, they would have been cut off too from the family. I could have been somewhat civil to my sister after the affair. However, unlike my ex, she acted as if I was the affair partner, as if I was the one who stole everything from her. She's never once apologized, took the blame, or even have a little shame. I don't want anything to do with her. I barely want a relationship with my ex, but he understands I'm only doing this for my niece. I don't want her to feel unwanted and unloved, and with her mother being my sister and her grandmother being my mother, she has a very high chance of that. I do, however, want to keep my niece happy, and perhaps her relationship with her mother may do that? Now for the top advice. There is no way, there is never a way to have a healthy relationship with people like your sister. Even trying would just make her get even more demanding and would start her trying to use her daughter as a weapon to control you the way she did your ex. Honestly, I discussed this with your ex, since he's been the one your arrangement is with, and he also has experience dealing with your sister's BS. Tell him you want to continue your relationship with your niece, but don't want any trouble starting with her mother. So you leave it up to him to decide how to navigate the situation. I've had this discussion with my ex. He's more than happy to keep it going, but I feel as though it will only cause more issues in the future. My family and I have come to an agreement to let this whole thing play out without interferences. As much as we want our niece to feel included in the family, we fear our sister would do something crazy just to prevent that. Nah, your ex has legal rights and a good lawyer. She tries to pull something up, she'll end up losing more stuff. She knows this. OP, your sister is just going to use and manipulate you again, as she has done so much in the past. When your brothers are saying to stay away from her, listen to them since they are closer to everything than you are. You are best off simply going through your ex to see your niece. Your sister is simply toxic. You can tell your sister that you forgave her long ago, but you'll never trust her, and she'll never be your friend. I'm thinking of just keeping my distance. If my niece decides she wants to have a relationship with me when she's 18, then I'll make contact then. I just didn't want her growing up thinking her mother's family didn't love her. It's a crappy feeling, and with the poison her grandmother and mother are definitely feeding to her, I can very well see her hating her cousins and uncles and aunties when she's older. You need to be careful for not letting them turning her like your sister and do the same stuff to her cousins. The father has his rights and time with his daughter, so when he has her, spend family time with her and don't care about those two crazies. You have the support of all the family, so do it. And if your supposed mother and sister continue to attack you, go through legal actions and they will shut it. I think you need to butt out completely. This is not your child, and you are stepping out of your lane. If your mother did what you were doing, this would be all over just no mother-in-law, with everybody saying your mother was overstepping her lane and she had no rights to that child. Right or wrong, none of you have a right to time with that child. What you are doing is called parental alienation. As for your sister, she is clearly a piece of work. Tell her to get lost, but leave her child alone. Last story. Told my sister she doesn't deserve to be a mother on Mother's Day. I, 19 female, told my sister, 30 female, that she doesn't deserve to be a mother on Mother's Day. My nephew is currently 3 years old, and she barely treats him like a son, but rather an accessory. She's constantly in social media, flaunting her motherhood. She tells people it's so hard to be a single mom, when that's something she absolutely chose for herself. She decided to get pregnant on her own, and cut ties with a father who wanted to be there for my nephew. Just recently, my sister left for another state to work on herself and her finances. She left my nephew with my parents and it's been hard for everyone. She gradually stopped calling us frequently and starts up an argument with my parents when they ask her for money to get him things he needs, such as diapers, wipes, food, etc. She tells them she doesn't need to pay them for those things because that's their grandson. And if she keeps giving them money all the time, then she left his state for no reason because she'll have no money to provide for them when she gets back. It's infuriating. As she does this, she posts on social media about how she's in the best position of her life, how her mental health is improving, and she's living the life as a single mom. She has a bit of a temper when confronted, so I've always held back on giving my opinion. But just before Mother's Day came around, my dad offered to take my nephew to her so she could be with her son. Mind you, she hasn't seen him in around 4 months. My dad asked her for the address and just stopped answering him. I messaged her and asked her where she was, and she replied that she was in a further state than she previously said. It seemed as if she didn't want to get a visit from my dad and her son. When Mother's Day came around, she posted a celebration with her friends at a club. I deserve this. Happy Mother's Day to me. I got fed up with this and told her she didn't deserve to be a mother. I told her that she doesn't deserve to have such a beautiful son and he's going to absolutely hate her and forget her when he begins to understand why she isn't around. My parents said I was wrong about this. Edit, I'd like to make a few things clear. The father is not in the picture. He met my nephew just once when he was 1. He had the interest to be in his life to create one with my sister, not for the well-being of my nephew. He's just as bad, I believe. My parents definitely do enable her toxic behaviors, which is why this is such a complex case. Although she's 30, she acts like a child. She acts very entitled to my parents' money and help, which has made it easy for her to abandon my nephew to them. My mom loves my nephew like he's her own son, and the reason they got upset with me was because they didn't want me to challenge her to come back. My nephew prefers my mother much more. Their bond is inseparable, and everyone's afraid of her taking him away. They want to get a lawyer involved, and while it may sound like a simple solution, the trauma that comes with it is absolutely terrible for him. They don't want him to feel nothing less than a loved and cherished boy. He's a great boy. He's very loving and sensitive. Although he can't fully understand what's going on, he feels it. He has attachment issues with my mother. It's noticeable he's afraid she'll abandon him too. I hope you said that on her social media account for all her followers to see. I would love nothing more, but she blocked me and everything. Your sister sounds absolutely horrific. Just had a kid, as you said, to have as an accessory. It's disgusting when people do this. I know it's hard for your parents, but I would go to court and get full custody of the boy. That way, whenever your sister does come back, she can't use him anymore. Or if your parents don't want to do that, maybe get the boy's father in the picture, if he still wants to be a father. But I definitely think court needs to be involved. She doesn't even want him to visit her. That's just disgusting. I talked to my dad about this, and they're seriously considering taking custody of my nephew. Since she left, he's been struggling emotionally. He hasn't spoken a word, and although she's not around, she completely protests the idea of therapy. They want a place to take him, but they can't do that without her permission apparently. So in the best interest of him, that may very well be happening sometime in the future. She literally abandoned him. I wouldn't think the courts would allow the decision to be up to her at this point. If she hasn't seen her kid in 4 months, moved far away, and won't say where, it's time to file for custody. This will clear up everything really quick. Mom will come and get the kid, show up to court, or she won't and will pay child support. Maybe then the dad can be involved in his life too. Good luck. The fact that she refuses to give an address to where she currently is means you need to send copies to her last known address. This actually works in the petitioner's favor. Parents need to file for emergency custody with all the text messages, any social media posts you all can find, and if there are any Venmos you can. You all cannot even get him medical attention if he becomes sick and needs a doctor. That's the thing. She lived with my parents prior to moving away. As soon as she got pregnant, she moved in and had my parents take care of her financially. She was living off of my parents up until she decided that she needed to get away from here and work for a better life for her and my nephew. Well then, I guess she should have supplied a current address, Because if your parents' home is still her only known residence, then the paperwork would be sent there. I would do a cursory search for a name/address based on the states she's claimed to be in, but if nothing comes up, that's her fault. An emergency order is normally done on the day it's filed with the courts. In the address section, your parents can also just write unknown. The court may attempt to call her during the hearing, but if she doesn't pick up, they are not going to waste time waiting more than that day. The order will be temporary, and they can get paperwork to file for more permanent custody while there. Child services may be called in during the emergency custody period to assess an attempt to track down both biological parents. But if y'all don't know who the father is and she refuses to name him, then the decision will be whether to keep him with your parents or your sister, if she even wants him.